When Europeans first set foot on the shores of the Americas, they convinced themselves they had stumbled upon empty lands, vast, untouched, waiting to be claimed. But Costa Rica, that slender ribbon of earth suspended between two great oceans, had been very much alive for centuries before the first European boot ever pressed its soil. The people who called this place home carried names as extraordinary as the land itself: the Chorotega, the Bribri, the Cabécar, the Huetar. These were no wandering primitives. They were skilled, disciplined farmers who cultivated maize, cassava, and peanuts across lush, fertile plains. Their metalwork, above all their goldsmithing, was nothing short of breathtaking. Each golden piece crafted with a precision and beauty that would leave you speechless. These tribes traded with one another, clashed with one another, and made peace again. Their rituals were layered and complex, woven through with a deep reverence for the natural world. Rivers were sacred, the volcanoes that rumbled across the landscape, sometimes exhaling fire, sometimes exhaling cloud, were regarded as gods of wrath. For more than 1,000 years, these people were rooted in this soil, generation after generation, living, breathing, belonging. The exact size of their population remains debated, but some historians estimate as many as 400,000 souls inhabited this land before the Spanish arrived. In the decades that followed first contact, that number collapsed in a tragedy almost too enormous to comprehend. Smallpox, measles, typhus swept through village after village like wildfire. Within a single century, more than 90% of the indigenous population was gone. This is one of the greatest human catastrophes in all of recorded history, and one that history has never fully mourned. The year was 1502. Christopher Columbus, on the fourth and final voyage of his life, passed along the northern coast of what we now call Costa Rica. Local indigenous people paddled out toward his ships with gold ornaments gleaming at their wrists, eager to trade. That single image, golden people, golden land, lodged itself in the Spanish imagination. They named the place Costa Rica, the rich coast. But it was a name born of a lie, and it would torment the colonizers for generations, because gold, the kind that flowed in rivers through Mexico and Peru, simply was not here. The formal conquest began in the 1560s when Juan Vázquez de Coronado founded the first lasting settlement. But unlike Mexico, where Aztec gold filled entire rooms, or Peru, where the Inca had accumulated wealth beyond reckoning, Costa Rica offered something far more humbling: land, forest, and a climate that could be tender one season and merciless the next. The men who had come chasing fortunes found themselves gripping a plow and turning the earth with their own hands. This reality, no gold mines, no enslaved workforce at scale, reshaped Costa Rican society at its very foundations. Spanish families had no choice but to work their own land. Husbands and wives, fathers and sons, bent together over the same furrows. The colony stayed small and poor, but deep within the fabric of its society, something remarkable was quietly taking root: a relative equality, a kind of peasant democracy almost impossible to find anywhere else in Latin America. Those who observed it from outside were genuinely astonished. The captains general of Guatemala referred to Costa Rica as one of the poorest and least significant regions under their command. Cartago, the colonial capital, looked less like a capital city and more like an oversized village. But there was a strange freedom hidden inside that poverty. When there is no great landlord looming over you, when the gap between rich and poor is not yet an unbridgeable chasm, people find different ways to live alongside one another. These differences, subtle, easy to overlook, planted roots in Costa Rican political culture that would announce themselves across the centuries to come. Then in the late 18th century, a small thing happened that altered the entire trajectory of this land: coffee. The coffee bean, tracing its ancestry back to Ethiopia, carried to the Americas through European hands, found in Costa Rican soil, particularly on the volcanic slopes, a home it seemed to have been searching for all along. The volcanic earth, rich and dark and soft, produced a coffee that existed nowhere else on Earth. The world was hungry for it, and Costa Rica was quietly, profoundly grateful. Exports flowing to England brought wealth this land had never seen before. That wealth built railroads, and those railroads connected the port of Limon on the Caribbean coast to the Central Valley. And with that iron thread, a new era began. For the first time, Costa Rica felt itself connected to the wider world. September 15, 1821. The Spanish Empire was coming apart at the seams. A Declaration of Independence was drafted in Guatemala. The news took several weeks to arrive in Cartago, carried on horseback by a lone courier, and when the Costa Ricans read it, they did so with something close to a quiet, bemused smile. We are free. No revolution, no massacre, no years of armed struggle leaving the land soaked in blood. Freedom arrived and drifted through open windows, and the people were glad. But where was freedom supposed to go? The different cities did not agree on the answer. Cartago wanted to remain capital. Heredia leaned toward the Mexican Empire. San Jose pushed for full independence. The quarrel erupted into a brief internal skirmish. Every faction wanted something different, and none were willing to yield easily. In the end, San Jose won and became the capital. That single decision bent the arc of the country's destiny in ways that not everyone welcomed. In 1838, Costa Rica declared itself a fully independent republic. It was a small country with a thin population, a tight budget, and enormous dreams. If you had to choose one point in all of Costa Rican history where everything shifted, where the entire country pivoted on its axis, that point would be 1948. Presidential elections were held. Otilio Ulate won, but the government of the day refused to accept the result and declared it invalid. It was then that José Figueres Ferrer, a landowner, an intellectual, a man who had spent years in exile thinking hard about what his country needed to become, took up arms. The Civil War lasted just 44 days. Roughly 2,000 people were killed. A small number by the blood-soaked standards of neighboring countries, but an immeasurable wound for Costa Rica, where each of those lives had a name and a future that was simply cut short. Figueres prevailed. He formed a provisional government, and then he did something almost no one had anticipated. He dissolved the army. December 2nd, 1948. José Figueres Ferrer lifted a sledgehammer and struck the wall of the Bella Vista military barracks. He said, "I give this building to education," and he meant it. The barracks was converted into the National Museum. A country without an army had more money for schools and hospitals. It was a simple equation, but it demanded a kind of courage that history has shown to be genuinely rare. The Constitution of 1949 that followed became one of the most progressive founding documents in all of Central America. Women and indigenous people were granted the right to vote. Racial discrimination was formally prohibited. Education was declared compulsory and free. A national healthcare system was established. These were not hollow aspirations. The governments that followed built upon them steadily, and the progress was visible with each passing year. From the late 1940s through the 1970s, Costa Rica grew slowly but with extraordinary consistency. Literacy rates climbed until the country claimed one of the highest in all of Latin America. Life expectancy rose. Rural clinics were built in places that had never seen a doctor. Teachers traveled to the most remote mountain valleys and set up classrooms. On the scale of Central America, where Guatemala, Nicaragua, and El Salvador were drowning in cycles of violence and dictatorship, Costa Rica appeared to the world like an island of calm. No dictators, elections held, power changing hands peacefully. In a region where strongmen had ruled for decades, this was genuinely rare. But the 1980s delivered a savage blow. The Latin American debt crisis struck. Coffee and banana prices collapsed on world markets. The government carried crushing debt. Costa Rica teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Those years delivered a hard lesson. Depending on one or two export products is not a strategy. It is a gamble, and eventually the gamble fails. It was in this turbulent period that Oscar Arias Sanchez stepped forward onto the world stage. The neighboring countries were burning in civil war, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, all consumed by violence. Arias proposed a peace plan and sat at the table with patience and diplomatic precision, weaving ceasefires where others had seen only impossibility. In 1987, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. A small country, an enormous voice, proof that in international affairs, moral clarity can outweigh military might. Costa Rica covers roughly 52,000 square kilometers, but within that modest expanse, more than 5% of the entire planet's biodiversity makes its home. The first time you hear that figure, you don't quite believe it. Brilliantly colored birds, poisonous frogs in electric blue and vivid red, jaguars slipping through shadow, howler monkeys filling the forest with sound, all in one small country. Volcanic mountains, cloud forests drifting in permanent mist, coral reefs offshore. In the 1970s and 1980s, when deforestation was advancing across Central America at an alarming pace, Costa Rica chose a different road. National parks were established. Laws limited tree cutting. The government made a deliberate decision. Rather than selling its nature piece by piece, it would protect it. And then ecotourism was born. Visitors arrived from North America and Europe, hungry to walk beneath a rainforest canopy, to watch birds from a foot away, to breathe air untouched by industry. That love affair between tourists and this land turned out to be deep and lasting. Today, more than 1/4 of Costa Rica's territory is classified as protected. That percentage is unmatched anywhere on Earth. In recent years, more than 95% of the country's electricity comes from renewable sources: hydropower, wind, solar, and geothermal. In a world where climate crisis looms as the defining challenge of the century, this is a lesson that much larger nations could learn from. But Costa Rica makes no claim to being paradise. In recent decades, economic inequality has been growing again. Rural areas still lag far behind the cities. Nicaraguan immigrants who come in search of work sometimes encounter discrimination. And a society that learned from history what injustice costs can sometimes forget its own lesson. Organized crime and drug trafficking, flowing through the veins of Central America, have reached Costa Rica as well. Coastal towns that were once quiet now wrestle with security problems that would have seemed impossible a generation ago. Even so, Costa Rica remains, in the landscape of Latin American democracies, a genuine exception. Free elections are held. The press is relatively free. The judiciary operates with independence. And perhaps most importantly of all, the people believe in their democratic institutions. That social trust is a form of capital that cannot be purchased at any price. Pura vida, two Spanish words meaning pure life. In Costa Rica, they have become something far larger than a simple greeting. You hear them when someone asks how you are. You hear them when you say goodbye, when you give thanks, when the day has gone well, and also when it has not. It is a philosophy of living that says, slow down, be glad, drink from the present moment, and do not let the weight of the world crush the joy that is still available to you right now. And this philosophy did not emerge from any book of philosophy or any university lecture. It grew from the soil of a history that was often difficult, from a people who learned, through hardship, through loss, through resilience, how to be genuinely happy with less, and how to keep going anyway, with grace. On global happiness indices, Costa Rica consistently ranks near the top. On the Happy Planet Index, measuring the relationship between human well-being and environmental impact, it has ranked first multiple times. Life expectancy here surpasses that of many European countries. These numbers are not coincidences. They are the accumulated consequence of hundreds of choices made over generations to build a society around people rather than power. Today, more than 5 million people call this country home. The technology sector has grown impressively. Multinational companies have long maintained operations here, and young Costa Rican engineers and programmers have built international reputations. Tourism draws millions of visitors each year from every corner of the earth. The healthcare system, known as the Caja, is recognized as one of the most effective public health systems in all of Latin America. The streets of San Jose are filled with young people working on laptops and cafes, making art, playing music, building something new. The people who call themselves Ticos have built an identity from the confluence of multiple streams. The Spanish brought their language, faith, and culture. The indigenous peoples remained, preserving ancestral knowledge and an intimate bond with the land. African migrants from the Caribbean, particularly in the province of Limon, added rhythm, music, in a flavor all their own. Then came waves of immigrants from Nicaragua, Colombia, China, and Italy. Out of all of these, a nation was made. Costa Rican cuisine reflects this layered story. Gallo pinto, rice and beans fried together in the same pan, is the national breakfast, humble and perfect. Corn tortillas, thick soups, tropical fruits at every corner. These foods are a portrait of a people who learned to make the finest possible thing from whatever they had. The marimba, an instrument that traveled from Africa to find a home in Central America, is the voice of national celebrations. Along the Caribbean coast, you hear reggae and calypso. In the Central Valley, traditional melodies accompany dances in wide circles. This cultural richness is a form of wealth that too often goes unnoticed by the outside world. If there is one lesson to draw from the history of Costa Rica, perhaps it is this: smallness is not the same as weakness. A country with a population smaller than many of the world's great cities, occupying a patch of land that barely registers on the global map. has nonetheless managed to stand as a genuine model for democracy, peace, and environmental sustainability. Not because it was blessed with extraordinary natural resources, it had no gold, no oil, but because of decisions its people made, one after another across generations, to shape a beautiful future for their country. Costa Rica has shown what becomes possible when a society decides to invest in education rather than armies, to treat its nature as a treasure rather than a commodity to be extracted and discarded, and to remain committed to democracy not because the world demands it, but because the people themselves believe in it. Not because they were told to, but because they chose to again and again, with their eyes open and their hearts decided. Of course, it is not perfect. It still carries its problems. It still has a long road ahead of it. But in a world where the news is saturated with conflict and fear, Costa Rica stands as a quiet and persistent reminder that another way is possible. A way in which, instead of fearing the other, you open your arms a little wider to the forest and to the stranger both. Pura vida. Pure life. Two words that summarize a long and extraordinary history. A history that began with indigenous tribes rooted in this soil, passed through colonialism and struggle, survived crises that would have broken lesser nations, and arrived at a peace-loving republic that loves its nature, respects its people, and still, after everything, chooses hope.